Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the latest updates of SFI. I'm just going to give it one more minute to allow a few more people to join, so bear with us. And please, if you haven't already, go get a cup of tea, go grab a sandwich. We'll just give it 1 minute. Welcome those who are just joining. We'll start off in about 30 seconds. Just wanted to give a chance to those joining slightly later. Great. All right. Well, let's kick off. Welcome everyone to our short, sharp 30-minute webinar on the latest updates for SFI26. You might have joined our last one a few weeks back, but we got some more announcements from the NFU Conference last week. So we're wanting to share them with you and kind of what that means in practice. So we will be recording this session, and please do ask your questions as we go through. We'll have some time at the end to go through them. Okay, so a quick introduction to me. So I'm Iona. I'm the commercial director here at JustFarm. I'm also joined today by Grant and James, and they'll introduce themselves as they go through. Lovely wave. And we've got the lovely Lara in the background who's also helping me. So thank you, Lara. So a quick introduction to us. So we're part of the Black Sheep technology family. We're all about helping improve the working lives of farmers, and whether that's through Flock Finder, which is all around managing your livestock, or JustFarm, which is all around helping farmers and their agents plan and manage their environmental schemes. So of course, very, very relevant to what we will be talking about today. So lots to get through in the next 30 minutes. So just high level what we'll be covering. So Grant will talk us through the June window. We know we've got June and September as the application windows. Grant will be talking you through when you can apply, whether you'll be able to apply in June, as well as a few other high level snapshots that we heard last week. James will be talking us through in a bit more detail what we heard. And then critically, we'll be sharing with you what we still don't know, what we're still trying to seek answers from DEFRA and the RPA for you. And we'll be bringing the recent changes to life through a case study on one of the farms that we work closely with. And finally, talking and sharing about how you can be prepared for when that window opens. So Grant, I'll hand over to you. Please introduce yourself and tell us what the June window means.
Thanks, Iona. Hi, everyone. I'm Grant. I'm the Chief Product Officer at JustFarm, which essentially means it's my job to hear from everyone like you who wants to use the platform and find out how we can make it solve your problems. So let me try and explain one of the things you might not be super au fait with, which is the SFI windows for SFI26 that are coming up. So essentially, it's going to be getting opened up in two windows. And the June window, which I'm going to explain here, is kind of like an early access window, essentially. And there are, I would say, kind of two key groups of farms that are going to be eligible in this first June window. So the first is small farms, and we've had some actual definition now of a small farm. That was one of the things that came out of the announcement at the NFU conference. So in the case of the June window, a small farm is any farm between 3 and 50 hectares. So if you have a farm between 3 and 50 hectares, you will be eligible to apply for SFI in the June window, even if you have existing agreements. That's the other important thing here. So those small farms between 3 and 50 hectares, it doesn't matter whether you do have existing SFI, countryside stewardship, HLS agreements, or you don't, you'll be eligible to apply for the new SFI26 in that window. Now, for larger farms, they're also eligible in the June window, in this first window. But for those, it's only larger farms above 50 hectares that don't have existing environmental land management agreements on the farm. So you can't have HLS, you can't have countryside stewardship, and you can't have existing SFI agreements if you want to apply in that first window and you're above 50 hectares. The last thing we kind of know about the details of this first June window at the high level is that the application window will be open for 2 months or until the budget has been fully allocated. So there's a fixed budget for this window, and they're saying that essentially the longest it's going to be open is 2 months, but it may close before that if all of the money has been used up already. So I think that's an initial like something to hook onto. There's a theme throughout this, which is it's kind of going to be first come, first served. It's going to be important to kind of jump on this when it's open if you are eligible. And speaking of which, we have a little question for you, a little poll, because it'd be interesting to find out who sits where. So we want to know which window are you looking to apply to? So do you think you're eligible to the June window and you want to apply there? Do you think for your case it's going to be the September window? Both potentially if you're an agent, farm business consultant advisor, someone who's applying for multiple farms, you might be looking at both windows. And finally, if I haven't done a good job of explaining, you might still not know. So click don't know if you're still not sure which window you're gonna be applying in. I'm gonna click don't know for myself. So there's gonna be one click for don't know. Okay, great. So quite a lot of responses. Half of the people have responded already that are on the call, and we're seeing a vast majority of people looking at that first June window. So that's great. Actually, no one on the call at the moment is looking at the September window, which is interesting. So it sounds like by the looks of it on this call, at least we've got a lot of people with small farms between 3 to 50 hectares that have existing agreements or no agreements at all, and potentially some people with larger farms that don't currently have SFI or countryside sureship or HLS or anything like that on their farm. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit more detail, the headlines here about what's changed in SFI 2026. And then I'm going to hand over to James, who's going to go through in even more detail some of the real key changes and some of the stuff that's really worth thinking about when it comes to planning for SFI 2026. So the headlines that you might have seen already, but we'll just go over them because there's some important stuff in here, is that we're down from 102 actions in SFI 2024 expanded offer to 71. So part of the theme that we heard from DEFRA is that they're going to be trying to simplify SFI in this case. Now, 71 actions is still a lot to go through and a lot of complexity, especially when you're trying to understand what can be done on your farm and what stacks with your existing agreements. So it's not super simple, but it is a slight simplification. You've got 31 fewer actions in this in SFI 2026. There's now an agreement cap, so the amount of money you can claim in your agreement is now capped at £100,000 per year. So I think that one in particular is more likely going to affect the much larger farms. So most smaller farms weren't kind of hitting that cap in previous SFI agreements, but some larger farms were going over that cap, and in some cases well over. The SFI management payments have been removed. So in previous SFI schemes, you got a lump sum of money along with your action payments purely based on the size of your farm. So it was kind of a transition from BPS, that kind of model of getting paid for your area without any kind of actions that you have to do for that payment. That's been removed from the new scheme. Rotational actions, this is an interesting one. So rotational actions, for those of you who are familiar with them from previous SFI schemes, you set an area for the rotational action you're doing. Let's say it was CSAM3 herbal lays. You said, I'm doing this much area. And then in subsequent years, when you rotated that action, you were able to increase the amount and therefore increase the value that was paid out on your agreement. In fact, the rule was you couldn't decrease it below 50% of what was in your original year of your agreement, but you could increase it as much as you want in theory. That's changed. You're now locked in at a cap of what you've agreed to in year one, so you cannot increase your rotational action above what you agreed to in the first year of your agreement. So if you have an existing SFI agreement and you also apply for the new SFI 26, you might have to have a think about those old rules for your old rotational actions and the new ones. There are no longer any 5-year actions. So some of the SFI agreements in the past had actions that lasted 5 years. Everything's been brought down to 3 years now. So all agreements for SFI going forward will only last 3 years. And finally, similarly to the previous SFI, SFI24, there are 10 of those actions are limited area actions, which means at most you can put those actions on 25% of your total farmland area. So even if you add multiple of them, they can only cover 25% of your total land area. There's still 10. But one has been removed and one's been added in. So I believe Bumblebird Mix is gone. So you can no longer get Bumblebird Mix, and it's been replaced by Enhanced Overwinter Stubble, which is now a restricted area action. So it was a nice high paying action in the past, but that's now been restricted. So you can't put that on more than 25% of your land area. So those are some of the key headlines. But now I'm going to hand over to James to dig into some of the interesting nuanced detail that lies underneath all of that. James.
Thanks, Grant. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's all that interesting. This section might be a little bit dry for some of you, but essentially I'm going to do my best to summarize what was published in DEFRA's latest blog. I printed off here the latest blog, which detailed some of the changes between SFI24 and SFI26 that's coming up. I will try my best to keep it interesting, but this section is a little bit dry. As Grant mentioned, 31 of the actions have now been removed. So instead of 102, we now have just 71. Of those, some of the key ones we've noted down here are the removal of a lot of the management actions, which is a bit of a shame. For example, CSAM1 there at the top of the list. This was the action about assessing soil management, assessing your soil and producing a management plan. This was enormously popular, by far the most popular action. It was on 50% of the area covered by SFI24, about 4.3 million hectares. That's now been scrapped. That no longer exists. Same with CNUM1 for nutrient management, pest management there, and hedgerow conditions, all gone. Essentially, the kind of the concept or the theme that's running through this is any action that required you to go away, do an assessment, write a report, and put that report in your filing cabinet. Pretty much all of those have now disappeared. There's a few more I haven't mentioned on this list, but that's essentially the thrust of it. Also, as Grant mentioned, there will no longer be any management payments. You won't get that kind of lump sum payment for just managing SFI on your farm. So all of that has now sadly gone. Moving on to a couple of the kind of other kind of granular points here. Again, as Grant mentioned, overwinter stubble has now been included in the restricted area limit. This was another action that we saw that was very, very popular. You not only now need to assess, okay, do I want to continue with overwinter stubble, but that 25% restriction limit applies to all of the restricted area limits. So any action that has a restricted area limit, you have to kind of add them all together and make sure as a group they don't cross the 25% threshold. So it might impact some of the decision making on other restricted area actions if you want to continue with overwinter stubble. Rotation actions can no longer be increased. So yep, our advice there is to try and go big if you can initially. Try and maybe apply a little over apply in the first year. You can always reduce it a little, but you won't be able to increase it again. And base and supplemental actions must be applied for together. This sounds a little bit weird, but what we saw in the past was some people would apply to SFI24 with the base action and then apply again sometime later with the supplemental action. That's no longer going to be possible. You're going to have to apply to both at the same time. What this means for 26 is if you already had the base action in your 24 agreement, you won't be able to apply for the supplemental in the 26 agreement. You'd have to do them both at the same time, or you won't be able to do either. And as Grant mentioned, 5-year actions now have been reduced to 3. Delving into a little more detail, some of our favourites have also had their payment rates reduced, some quite dramatically. Herbal Lays there has seen a 42% reduction, which is a huge reduction. Again, another massively popular action in the old agreements. The justification for this essentially was that the payment rate made it too attractive and it was taking too much land out of food production. A bit of a funny justification in my mind, but nonetheless, they've reduced the payment rate. Winter bird food has gone down by a quarter, and legume fallow, again, both these quite popular, has been reduced by 11%. The only upshot here is that those reductions will only apply to new agreements, so they won't impact what you've already got in place. They're only going to apply to SFI26. All right. Some good news in the pack. If any of you are in moorlands, uplands areas, we have seen payment increases for mainly livestock related actions, where the payment rates have gone up quite substantially in some of these cases. This is to reflect the change in livestock value essentially over the last few years. Livestock value, I'm pleased to say, has gone up in value. Therefore, the associated actions also need to be more incentivizing to encourage people to remove their livestock off the grazing when the livestock's worth more money. They've had to increase the price that they'll pay to do that. The really, really good news here is that those increases will apply retrospectively. So if you happen to have any of these UPL actions in your existing agreement, you should expect to get a bit of a payment bump going forward, which is lovely. So yeah, some good news at last. Okay, a few things that we still don't know. So we still haven't seen the full scheme details, which would include the what needs to be done, when you need to do it, evidence you need to keep, and importantly, the compatibility and stacking rules. So we haven't seen the full detail yet as to how SFI26 will fit in on top of countryside stewardship, SFI24, etc. We expect the details at this point. We're expecting it to be very much the same as 24. It doesn't look to us like they've done a massive rethink. It looks as though they've just kind of tweaked some things, changed some payment rates. It doesn't look like they're reinventing the wheel here. So we're expecting most of the details to be very similar to SFI24, but we're still waiting for that detail to confirm. We also have not seen how the budgets will play out, what budget has been allocated, how that will be split between June and September. We've seen no details on that. We don't know whether you'll be able to exit early from your existing agreement if you're planning to switch over to SFI26, which is a pending question we need to get answers to. And we're not clear yet on how well demand will match up to the budgets available. That's partly because we don't know what the budget is at this point in time, but we're expecting quite a high level of demand, particularly from farmers who missed out on the application windows last year. We're expecting those to kind of rush in early doors and make sure they get across the line before the windows close or the budget's used up. But we don't know yet, how quickly that budget might be used up. We haven't been able to make any assessments there yet. This brings me on to this page. Now, bear with me. This one is a little bit complicated to explain, but I will try my best. As the RPA has put in place a £100,000 a year cap, the only way that they can see to enforce that cap is by allowing just one SFI26 agreement per farm. This in itself kind of sounds fairly innocent, but it will have some fairly major repercussions. So for farmers who already have an SFI agreement or countryside stewardship agreement, but mainly SFI, most historic agreements aren't due to lapse until the end of 2026, start of 2027. That little chart on the right-hand side there, the kind of orangey line, is SFI agreements, and you'll see it starts to drop off in November, December this year, continuing to drop through 2027 as those agreements lapse. So we know that anybody who historically has an agreement is still going to have it active when SFI26 opens. So that puts those farms in a bit of a tricky situation. So option A here is that the farmer applies for SFI26 in June or September, whichever window is applicable to them, and they apply for just the few additional actions they might be able to stack on top of their farm. So they'll still have a live 24 agreement plus a few actions from 2026, just kind of earn a little bit of additional income. The issue there is come early next year, say April next year, that their original agreement will then end and they'll lose the income from their 2024 agreement. So the question still outstanding that we're seeking guidance from the RPA on is, at that point in time, when your 24 agreement lapses, will you be able to come back and apply again for SFI? Will there be an SFI27, for example, which would allow those farmers to come back and get the income they desperately need? Of course, the other choice that farmers have is to wait and wait until their historic agreement ends. So again, in this example, you wait until April 27 when your SFI24 agreement ends, and you'll be able to apply to SFI26 unencumbered. You can apply for 100% of the eligible actions. It's all very great and rosy, but obviously the key concern there is, will funding still be available? Will there still be will the windows still be open? Will the budget be sufficient? Will there be any chance of applying in April next year when your SFI agreement ends? So as I've said, it leaves farmers with existing agreements in a very tricky spot now. They have a very hard decision to make. And given that there's about 45,000 SFI agreements already in place from the last round, we're pressurizing DEFRA and the RPA quite heavily on, we need an answer here. This represents tens of thousands of farmers who need this answer. So I'm afraid we don't have any guidance right now, but I put that question to them to try and seek further clarification. Yeah, Grant.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention here because I think it's really relevant. It's a similar idea, and there's a few people asking in the Q&A about it. So there was the countryside stewardship mid-tier extensions that were offered at the end of last year to people who had countryside stewardship agreement ending in December 2025. Now, a lot of people, a lot of our customers, a lot of our users, and a lot of people in the chat here seem like there are people who've accepted those extensions. In fact, I think it was the majority of people who did accept them. And in this case, it looks like for many of those farms, especially the farms that are over 50 hectares, this will have blocked them from the June window. So again, we're seeing like that it's not always clear that being able to get that agreement up like in as quickly as possible and in up front is a great strategic move. So there's definitely some thinking to be done there about potentially blocking yourself from SFI applications in the future.
Thanks, John. Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yes, we know a lot of people took up the RPO and those extensions. So obviously you're going to have to factor in. It's the same challenge. Is it worthwhile you getting in early with an application, knowing that some of the SFI26 actions will be blocked by the CS and that extension, but at least you're gaining something? Or is it better to wait until December and then apply for much more? Again, we're seeking additional guidance on this. Okay, so that was all kind of fairly dry and hard work to get through. So to try and bring this to life a little bit, we've taken this to a case study. Yes, okay, yeah, we've taken this through to a case study. So what I've done now is had to look at it's actually our own family farm, my brother's farm down here in the southeast, and he was in the SFI24. He had an SFI24 agreement, and what I've done is I've had a look at his agreement, and I've gone through it and removed all of the actions that have now been stripped away to see what impact it would have on his farm. So by removing all of the agreement level actions, management actions, CSAM1, all these ones that are disappearing, his income from SFI would be reduced by about 40%, which is quite a major impact, especially for a small farm to lose 40% of the income from SFI. However, all hope is not lost, because then I took my brother's farm, I cleaned it off to a clean slate and applied to SFI26 and our understanding of it through our planner that we have in the JustFarm platform to see whether I could recover some of that lost revenue through applying for actions that are maybe less well known, some fringe actions that people weren't that familiar with, that he missed off when he applied for SFI24. And I'm very pleased to say that I was able to recover about 90% of the lost value through hunting around for those additional kind of extra little actions here and there. And for him, that equates to about £7,000 for a 35-hectare farm. So a decent amount of revenue we were able to recover there using our planner and the intelligence that we have in the platform. And I think I'm now due to show you kind of what that would look like for anybody who's curious as to how to do that. Let me just quickly share my screen. Hopefully you should see my screen now. Everyone on the team give me a thumbs up. Great. Yeah. So from the JustFarm platform, I'm going to log into my profile here and go into, this is a farm I've set up. This is my brother's farm where I've cleaned off his agreements. So I'm starting from a clean slate. And what I've done in here is I've opened up our SFI26 planner. I just click through to it here. And I spent a little bit of time yesterday afternoon, it took me about half an hour or so, clicking around his farm and rebuilding a plan from scratch under our understanding of what the new rules look like. So I've left the field here empty so I can show you. So here we have a permanent grassland field. The planner shows us what actions are available for that field and what actions are incompatible. It's just remove those from the screen so they don't kind of distract us. And what I'd really like to do here is apply for one of the grassland actions. And I favorited one here, CLIG 3, managing grassland with low nutrient inputs. Great, I want that. I've added that to my field now. And then I'd quite like to see what else is available here. Again, I could have a look through these actions, but also there are some supplementary actions that have been highlighted. So because I've applied to CLIG 3, there are these additional supplements that I could add to this field. And I quite like the idea of this haymaking supplement, so I'm going to add that as well. Adding that to the whole field, that's another £500 a year. Great. And here we can see for this field, I've now added a couple of actions for SFI26, totaling about £1,000 a year to my agreement value. And I did this yesterday, and I went around all these other fields and did the same thing. Here with these ones with ponds, I added some water body actions, which again were a bit of a fringe action that people used to miss off. And I built up a plan as to what the maximum I could apply for under SFI26. And here you can see a summary of everything that I selected and went for. And I managed to pull back the total value. This is a per year value to about £7,500 a year, £22,000 in total, recovering, as I said, a lot of the loss we saw from the removal of those management actions. What we also show you in the platform here, just for people who are interested, is we're keeping track of that 25% agreement limited area cap, as well as that payment cap, which obviously in this instance we're nowhere close to. So yeah, that's just a quick glimpse as to how I managed to do that and what it meant for that farm. I'm sure Grant will be very happy to show anybody who's interested a full in-depth demo of the platform and the planner. But yes, so to give you a sense there, all hope is not lost. You can recover the lost income from the removal of those actions. Okay, right. Conscious we're running out of time a little bit. So some key things to remember. So how to prepare. We went through this last time. Please find any existing agreements you already have. Get a good sense as to what you already have on the farm. Update your land data on the RPA portal. It's good to do that in advance as well. And if you can, start planning your SFI application early, either using tools like ours or do it on desk-based on your desk, or do it with your agent, but start getting in there early so you know what you want to apply for when the June window opens, and submit your application as soon as possible to make sure you don't get caught out by early closure or budget restrictions. Good. Sorry, Iona. I feel like I tried to get through it as quick as I could, but I appreciate you've only got a couple of minutes left. But
you nailed it. Thank you, James. Okay, so some practical next steps for you off the back of this call. So as you'll briefly have seen the JustFarm platform, you can go on and register a free account. You can upload your farm, you can upload your agreements, and just start to see, if you do have agreements, start to see what you need to do. That's all free. We would recommend, if you saw on the left-hand side, to access the planner. We've opened up a waiting list for those who are interested in using the planner. Our price for this is £195, so £195 plus VAT for those smaller farms, to enable you to go in there and start planning and be ready for that 1st of June window opening. So open up your free account, go onto that planner, and go onto the planning side, and if you're interested, just register for our wait list. And then if you wanted to see the JustFarm platform in greater detail, we've got a session on Thursday at 12 o'clock, which you are very welcome to join. So we've got a few minutes left. Just to say on here, you've got our QR code to create your free account today. Literally just takes a few minutes. And on the right-hand side, if you wanted to join our JustFarm walkthrough on Thursday at midday, there's your QR code for that. For those of you who need to finish at 12:30, thank you very much for joining us. It was great to have you with us. But for those of you who want to stay on for a few more minutes, I'm going to rattle through the questions, which I think, Grant, you've very diligently gone through. So maybe I'll just talk through high level. So Linda, you asked if the 3 hectares, if that includes agricultural land or also includes roads, farmyard, trucks. Grant, appreciate we haven't seen any details on this yet. You strongly suspect they'll go to the total area for the land. Okay, please don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I just think it's when you look at your land in the RPA portal, they show you the total of everything of all your land covers, and I would be surprised from a technical point of view if they didn't just take that to make their lives easier rather than try and remove individual covers. But yeah, don't quote me on it.
Right, we've got a countryside stewardship mid-tier extension due to finish in December, extended by 1 year to December 2026 because of the delays. Will I be able to transition this land to the SFI application in June, or are they locked?
Again, there's some unknown here. Sorry, on you go, James.
Yeah, sadly, this is that unknown question. Our expectation at this point in time is that you will have restrictions. So all the time you have those CS mid-tier things still active, that will restrict you from applying for certain other actions in SFI26. So it will restrict what you can apply to. As I said, we're still asking the RPA for further guidance here as to whether farms in your situation are expected to wait till December and whether they can give us any assurance that a window would still be open by then, or whether they're expected to apply for what they can when they can, and expect further support in the future. I'm afraid that's as close as we've got for an answer at the moment, but we will let you know when we find out more.
Yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate, because it's come up a few times in the chat, it also depends whether you're eligible in that first window on your farm size. So there was also a question about this from Rob, I believe. So it really depends. If you have that extension right now, if you have an existing countryside stewardship agreement in place and your farm is over 50 hectares, by what they've given us so far, you will not be eligible to apply in that first window. The other big unknown there is whether you'll be able to come out of that agreement early, and we're seeking kind of more information from the RPA on this. But as things stand, you would have to wait to the September window if your farm was over 50 hectares. If it is under 50 hectares, you would be eligible to apply for SFI. But as James says, those existing countryside stewardship options you have might block you from doing things you want to do in your SFI application. So there is a little bit of ambiguity and uncertainty there that we're trying to get clarity on.
Thank you both. Question from Helen. So presumably those changes, so CSAM 1 disappearing, only affects agreements going forward. That's right. That only affect, the removal of actions will not affect existing agreements, just the new applications. Alan, it was suggested at another meeting I attended that if you had an agreement which ended in December, say, December 26, then you may be able to apply and have your new SFI 2026 agreement start when your existing agreement ended. Have you heard that?
I've not heard that, but that might be their solution to this problem. Yeah, that's interesting.
Alan, I'd be interested on where you may have heard that, but yeah, that is an interesting one. So have to keep our ears out for that. Question from Helen. Any news on capital grants reopening?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. There is, Helen. Yes, they will be reopening. From memory, about £220 million, 225, I think, has been set aside for capital grants this year, and they're opening in July, I believe. July 26th.
Yay! Some good news.
Yeah.
Hope that's music to your ears, Helen. And then last question from Martin. You missed the start. Is there a recording I can watch to catch up? Yes, we will have a recording. We can share that after this. But okay, just 4 minutes over. We did well, guys. So thank you everyone for joining. As I say, please go on, create your free account. Literally takes just a few minutes to do that and upload your agreements. Get ready for the June window opening. Think about planning with us, join our wait list. As I say, it's £195 for the small farms. We wanted to make sure it was accessible for as many people as possible. So hopefully that is music to your ears as well. And if you'd like to find out more about the JustFarm platform and to watch Grant go through that, we've got our session on Thursday at midday. So you've got the QR code there as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. And we will be in touch as soon as we hear any new updates on SFI26. So thanks for joining, and we will speak again soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.